Hey everybody, welcome back to the 6th-round post-fight show with me, Zane Simon, and my co-host, as always, Eddie Mercado. We are coming from what was almost a new record-setting decision-heavy card in Brasilia, Brazil. It matched the all-time decision record for UFC event, but those last three fights, all finishes, didn't get a chance to. History not quite made on this night.
Yeah, and boy, did I need that too. I was so bitter all through this card. I'm just like, man, the card starts at 3, so like my afternoon gets cut short, and like by the time it's all said and done, it's already going to be late anyway. So like my night's already shot. So I went in sour, and then the fights were sluggish. But thankfully, the last 3 delivered and gave me the blood that not blood, but the violence that I was really yearning for.
There you go. Nothing wrong with a little blood and violence. Yeah, no, as always, with these kinds of cards, the main event delivers, and, it kind of rights a lot of wrongs. And main event between Charles Oliveira and Kevin Lee absolutely delivered. Hell of a fun fight.
That was so much fun. Like, both men had moments on the feet. Lee was landing really hard right hands, trying to set up his head kick, and then I think it was the second round, Oliveira just started teeing off. Mm-hmm. Like he was landing beautiful crosses, uppercuts, chaining punches together, backing up Lee. Lee looked hurt and dazed against the cage. Like it was really fun on the feet. Like I would have been fine if it was a completely stand-up war throughout.
Oh,
but
sure.
even on the ground, it was fantastic.
Yep.
Oliveira throwing up all the submission attempts, Lee fighting him off, landing ground strikes when he found his opportunity, locking down control when the moments were there. Like both men just were it was such a competitive fight. And then
I mean, I think honestly that fight too, it's such a testament to what mindset does for you just as much as what skill can do for you. Because it's so clear that Charles Oliveira has worked over he's crossed a mental hurdle.
Mindset is everything. Because he used to be known as the guy who quits and fights.
Yeah, he used to be known as the dude who, when Kevin Lee was shucking his submission attempts and getting into dominant positions, used to be that Charles Oliveira would end up, like, if not quitting, like, he'd give up bad spots and lose. This is a dude who is the all-time submission leader in the UFC history and has, 4 submission losses on his record, all to people who are good grapplers. Ricardo Lamas, Anthony Pettis, Jim Miller, not bad grapplers at all.
Yeah.
But not, nearly the same sort of fearsome submission hunters that Oliveira has been. And so often it would be Oliveira getting some great dominant position and his opponent fighting it off just like Lee did. And then him just seeming to just kind of go passive when their grappling offense started. So
no, you're absolutely right. One of my friends, Mitch Aguiar, he's a Navy SEAL veteran. He's also a pro MMA fighter. And I was talking to him, and he was telling me that mindset is everything. That's like one of his slogans. And he tells me that fighting is 90% mental, and the other 10% is in your head.
Yeah, and I mean, the other point that showed up is really on the stand-up where Oliveira's crafted himself into this really unstoppable, unshakable pressure fighter.
Mm-hmm.
And Lee is not handling that. Like, he still has a major problem handling pressure because we saw in open exchanges, it's not like Lee is way worse technical striker than Oliveira. He came forward, he landed hard shots, he put power on Oliveira, he had some great moments, but what dictated the fight and what ended up being the difference, I think, in this fight is that Oliveira, no matter what was coming back at him, Oliveira was always confident standing that he could step in, take whatever Lee had, and return fire in combination and win those battles.
Yeah, and I mean, look at his last fight. He knocked out Jared Gordon with that sensational combination.
Yep.
And then before that, he knocked out Nick Lentz.
Yeah.
With, just a straight punch. So it's like he's proven to himself that he can knock out tough guys with his striking. And, you know, when you're on this sort of winning streak that he's on a 7-fight winning streak now, I mean, your confidence just goes through the roof in your abilities.
Yep.
And, I really like the way he pressures guys.
Yeah. And you can see it at the end of this, you know, he's pressuring Lee. He's landing shots on Lee. Lee's landing his own shots and getting his own strikes off. But he's the one who ended up feeling like he had to shoot that takedown to get this fight off the feet. And he shot right into a guillotine.
And it's crazy, too, because Lee was having so much success starting the third round. Like, he was throwing heat. He was throwing heat and he was landing.
Yep.
But I think it was just all the success he found on the ground. It was like, oh, well, I'm winning the wrestling. I was able to lock down top position here in the second. Let me go ahead and take the fight back there. But it's like...
And I think it's just, too, that he was landing those shots standing, but he wasn't getting any, like, you know, he wasn't building anything off of that. He wasn't getting any confidence off that. Whereas Oliveira was just the whole time walking him to the cage and unloading in the pocket on him and hurting him. You know, like...
Oliveira is looking really good right now, really complete. Like, he's coming to his own. Like, he's reached that elite level now where... You know, he's knocking on the door of a title shot. If this was any other division, he'd be right there.
It's true. He called out. He said he wanted to be cage side for Khabib versus Ferguson. And A, we don't know if that fight's even going to happen. Mm-hmm. B, nobody's going to be cage side for that thing. Nobody in attendance. If it does happen, it's going to look just like this. Nobody sitting in the audience. Nobody, you know, only... Cornerman
Bisping telling the non-existent crowd to make some noise.
Yeah. I mean, the funny thing is that the UFC gives so little lighting and atmosphere to the arenas that they visit. It wasn't really noticeable here. Like,
well, I missed out on a lot of boos and
you missed out on a lot of
boos. The Brazilian crowds really get into it. We didn't get that. And the interviews really fell flat without the crowd.
There were some things that didn't quite work, but it wasn't as odd as I would have expected. Just because the way they mic their shows, they tend to try to dampen the crowd noise as much as possible.
Right.
And then the way they light them, they try to keep all the lighting focused on the cage itself and not on the arena. So like. You missed the hush. Like, you got the silence of Maia getting knocked out at home, but you didn't get the insane crowd noise before the KO to really make that silence feel as sudden as it should have. You missed some moments in there, but it wasn't as strange and otherworldly as I thought it might be.
Yeah, it was definitely different, but. Yeah. You know, bearable. It doesn't really take enough away from the show to where it completely alters it or the experience in any meaningful way. But
mentioning that Maya lost, we got to get to that co-main event, and
this was tough.
Yeah, a lot of the BJJ faithful are going to be crying in their beer tonight.
Like, I'm happy that Burns won because I like what he's doing and I like where he's at in his career. Mm-hmm. Like, his stand-up working with Henry Hoof really has helped him out to build this pretty strong fundamental attack on his feet to complement his phenomenal grappling. So I'm glad that he won. I'm bummed out that Maia got knocked out because I love Demian Maia. And I'm also bummed out because I would have, I cried the whole undercard that, these decisions, I need to finish and all this. But if there was one fight that I would have been okay if it went the distance, it was this one. And if they would have just grappled the whole time and it been back and forth and each guy trying to submit each other, that would have just made me the happiest man alive.
Yep.
But it's like, we almost got that. And then the second it gets back to the feet, Burns is like, dink, left hook, this one's over.
Yeah.
It's like, it's cool, but it's like, it's a little it's not what I wanted.
Yeah. Maia wasn't loving the stoppage. The ref didn't call it right away and made Burns land some shots, but there was no real question about it. It was a totally rock solid TKO win for Gilbert Burns. And yeah, even Gilbert Burns was a little busted up after, he was a little broken up, a little verklempt after the win, saying that he felt, like the UFC should give Maia a big super fight, give him another shot. He wanted to give Maia another chance to fight Anderson Silva. I don't know that I've ever heard Maia bring that up. Maybe he has, and I just haven't paid attention. I've never, it has never been a thought that crossed, I think, any fan's mind. Oh, I need to see Demian Maia versus Anderson Silva again. But there's certainly still a couple fights out there I'd love to see to see Demian Maia in. I was just talking before the show started to our producer. I don't think this will ever happen, but I would actually love to see Demian Maia versus Nate Diaz.
Ooh, absolutely.
Right? Like,
well, I kind of feel two ways about that. I feel like Nate would piece him up on the feet.
He would.
And, like, it could get ugly, but them grappling together would be phenomenal.
And I mean, Nate's not a one-shot kill artist standing. He's not that likely to knock Maia out with one punch.
No, but I don't want to see. I don't want to see him taking that kind of volume-rich kind of beating.
It could get ugly, but I will say that everybody who's tended to try to take Nate Diaz down has tended to succeed. So
yeah,
it has the potential to be really cool and fun, or the potential to be really bad and ugly, but I'll take the potential to be cool and fun over seeing Maia just like, oh, let's just pitch him a dude who can't grapple and can't really hurt him and let him just pick up a big sub win.
I mean, honestly, it would never, ever, ever happen in this universe, but I would love if he got a shot at Conor McGregor.
Yeah, that's never happening.
Never happening, but like I would love to see it.
Yeah, that would be one where I would think that Maia would just get slept in like 10 seconds and that'd feel terrible.
I mean, maybe. Look what he did with Masvidal. Granted, it was before Masvidal became who he is today, but, not that far removed from it.
Yeah.
That was a split decision.
McGregor is one of MMA's all-time best fast starters.
And knockout artists.
Yeah. Either way, there's still some big fights I'd like to see Maia in. Not the Anderson Silva one, but Burns, on the other hand, called out Colby Covington. Also probably not a fight he's getting, but a great call out to make. I mean, this was a big win to rocket him up firmly into the top 10 at welterweight, and somebody's going to have to fight him up there.
I know Michael Chiesa said something on Twitter that he was paying close attention to this fight, so maybe they'll go at it.
Chiesa wouldn't be a bad shout. Jeff Neal is a fight I would love to see personally. It's not a step forward in name value for Burns, but it's the kind of dangerous test that I would love to see both men face. Burns against somebody that he really probably cannot out kickbox, and Neal against somebody that he really firmly can't afford to go to the ground with.
Yeah. I think Stephen Thompson's an interesting matchup as well.
Yeah. A lot of options right now in welterweight for Burns. It's just, as somebody who still doesn't have a lot of name value to him, who's a dangerous grappler and a dangerous striker, how many people is he going to be able to convince to fight him,
Yeah, and he's not a big draw either.
Exactly. So. That's why I think for guys like Thompson and Covington, they're kind of looking at that and being like, rather not,
Yeah. All the risk, none of the reward kind of thing.
Yep.
But I think Chiesa probably makes the most sense.
Yeah, it would be a good fight. Definitely, especially just because Chiesa's another fun, scrambling grappler. That brings us to a lightweight bout. One that, I was breaking this down. I was like, man, this is not a good fight for Damir Hadzovic. And it was not a good fight for Damir Hadzovic.
It wasn't. I thought it was going to be a lot different, though. I thought Moicano was just going to put hands on him. Yeah,
he's kind of a weird guy. I mean, a lot of what made his striking work at featherweight was how rangy and defensive he could be. He could just stick out there with his huge frame, keep the 1-2 going, keep low kicks going, slide away from people.
Mm-hmm.
He might have less ability to do that at 155, where people are big enough to match reach with him a lot more often. But he's still a great grappler and wrestler to go with it, and Hadzovic is not.
Yeah, it was so crazy. Moicano comes out, he gets the takedown, he takes the back, he sinks the rear naked choke. That's the end of it. And like Hadzovic was so salty and bitter, and he was like, what did he say afterwards? Moicano was like, he was like, I wanted to fight more.
Yeah.
And Hadzovic was like, well, you shouldn't have submitted me.
Yep. And
like, oh no.
Apparently, like a lot of that bitterness was on Moicano, because he was the one who like apparently said that he's admitted afterward that he got mad that like Hadzovic gave up the win so easily, and it's just like, I mean, what do you want to do? What do you want out of the guy, man? You just choked him out. Like,
no, I mean, I totally understand that. You know, I had my fight in January. I won in 100 seconds, and like the dude tapped to strikes, and I wasn't done. Like I was a little bitter, like in the moment. Like, man, like come on, dude.
I get it, but you can't from Moicano, like you just won the fight. Be gracious about it.
And like I also understand that Moicano wanted a bigger fight. Like look who he fought. You know, he came in as a number 7 ranked featherweight, moving up. Like he could have easily gotten a ranked opponent.
Yeah, I mean but the UFC doesn't like to do that. They like to tend to make people re-earn their spot, and unfortunately, even with this win being pretty dominant, I doubt, he called out Paul Felder. I doubt he's getting a ranked opponent next time out, too.
That's like the theme of the night, calling out guys who would be great for your career, but the chances of you actually getting the fight just aren't really happening.
I would love to see him fight Lando Venata.
That's fun. Especially the way Lando's been fighting. Or his last fight, I thought he fought like it wasn't the most fun, but his footwork and movement out there was actually exceptionally functional and hard to deal with.
Yeah.
So that's definitely an interesting matchup.
It's the kind of fight where both men off of a win like that could probably really firmly get a top 15, borderline top 15 opponent next time out.
I would be fine if he fought Charles Oliveira.
Yeah, I mean, that would definitely be a fun bout to make. Oliveira should be honestly in the line for something much bigger, but he should have been in the line for something much bigger. It took a long time for Oliveira even to get a fight this big, Yeah.
No, for sure. But I mean, in terms of title shots, look how long it took Tony Ferguson to get that Khabib fight.
Yeah.
Even though it was rescheduled 17,000 times.
Yeah. No, I know. Lightweight moves in strange and mysterious ways.
Yeah.
That brings us to a light heavyweight bout, though. Nikita Krylov, Johnny Walker, and what looked like the surefire fun thriller of the night kind of ended up being a super messy grappling slog.
Yeah, it was. Like, it was competitive, and there were, like, 1 or 2 big moments where someone got rocked, but it wasn't the firefight that we were hoping for. It's like, oh, Krylov, he doesn't really do decisions. Oh, Walker, he doesn't really do decisions. Yep. There's no way this is going the distance. And what happens? Oh, Krylov's like, oh, no. I've gotten privy to this FIQ, and I'm going to go ahead and work this takedown and test where you're at on the ground. And Walker spent a lot of time on his back, kind of lost.
Yeah, no, Walker is one of those dudes where it's either he's going to spark you with something thrilling, or you're going to watch and just be like, how does this dude beat anybody? And
yeah,
that's where it is. Like, that light heavyweight it plays in for so many guys. They can get by for a long time with that kind of game, and then suddenly just get randomly exposed in this kind of fight. So
what killed my buzz was in the 3rd round, Walker actually made it into full mount.
Yep.
And like instantly got reversed.
Oh,
it's like, oh man, when you get there, you need to control, and then try to do things.
If you're not a great grappler, full mount at the UFC level especially, honestly tends to be a pretty bad position. A lot of fighters just get instantly swept out of mount anymore.
That's tough money. I was just hoping. I was hoping for a lot more than what I got.
Yeah, unquestionably. And
but I mean, Krylov, he fought smart. I'll give him that, and he did what he had to do to get the win, and I respect that. But it's like, what happened to Nicky Thrills?
Yep.
Where's he at?
Yeah, we want to see the dude who's going to throw like a jumping switch kick and then a couple wild shots, hit a takedown, and go for an anaconda choke, and maybe give up a Von Preux choke as a result.
Yeah, where's that guy at? But it's growth, and you got to respect it and appreciate it. And, you know, for Walker, like, I respect him moving to TriStar. I think that's good for him. But I think it's just clear that he's got a lot of work to do when he's fighting a certain level of opposition.
And it's going to be weird for him going to big camps like that. If he really tries to revolutionize his training, it could get kind of awkward if he really tries to like tear down all the skills that brought him to this level to build a really functional, fundamentally technical game. That can be a long road for fighters.
Yeah, I hope he hasn't just fizzled out and like he had his moment and now it's no more.
Yeah, probably not.
Like he's just one of those guys that just really needs to rely on him being more athletic than the guy across from him.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Jackson Wink sounds like the perfect fit for that.
Yeah, it's true. Before that, earlier in the night, lightweight bout, Francisco Trinaldo just kind of breezed by John McDessie here, honestly.
Man, this fight sucked.
Yeah. Kind of figured this is exactly what this would look like, honestly. Like, Trinaldo's not a very high output fighter, but he's a good, technical, consistent kickboxer. And McDessie is just like, he's really lulled himself into this high defense, low power outfighter that can't put really any power strikes together.
Mm-hmm.
And like Trinaldo just had to chase after him and land a couple power shots every 20, 30 seconds or so to do more damage and get more out of the judges than McDessie with a bevy of slapping low kicks.
No, I mean, I felt like Benson Henderson was doing more for McDessie to win the fight than McDessie was. You know, just being obnoxiously loud with everything McDessie did. Like, oh, beautiful leg kick, nice leg kick, nice leg kick.
I love Bisping for pointing that out too. That like Bendo's probably trying to get in the judges' heads and like make sure that they know every time McDessie does anything, see it and keep track of it. It didn't work, but I'm glad to see the corner doing what they can.
Yeah, I think Bendo should win a performance bonus for that.
He totally should have.
It was smooth. I'll give him that.
Yeah.
But this fight was stale. It was really stale. But credit to Masa Randuba for being 40 plus years old and winning in the UFC.
Yeah, no, I mean, the man, he's got a really functional game that he can land power and he's controlled enough that he's not going to gas himself out if you don't push a pace on him. And it's getting him wins that nobody really cares about, but it's getting him wins. And that means you keep getting paid, Yeah,
keep getting them win bonuses.
Brings us to a flyweight bout. Brandon Moreno, Jussier Formiga, went to a decision, but this was a pretty good, fun, back and forth bout that was really kind of a lot of fun to watch,
I liked it. I definitely liked it. It seemed, the stakes are high in this one. The just the level of grappling going on, it's poetry in motion.
Yeah.
Like the scrambles that these guys are doing, like I could never dream of doing moves like that.
No.
It's so impressive.
There was a back take Formiga hitting there off of he hit an up kick and then like popped up to his feet and took Moreno's back in like half a second, and I cannot even imagine.
It defies physics.
Yeah.
Like it's really something to behold. And there was one scramble Moreno hit when Formiga did take his back. Yep. He hit this insane like twisting, I don't even know what to call it. I don't have the technical prowess to even begin to explain what happened, but he just kind of spun out in this funky kind of explosive whirlwind maneuver, and boom, he's back on his feet.
Yeah.
But the real difference maker was that Moreno was the one landing the strikes on the feet.
Yeah. He's, as one of the only flyweights with a really long reach and a consistent 1-2. He's one of the only fighters in that division that can really give a lot of fighters trouble in a pure distance striking battle. You know, he's filling that gap that Sergio Pettis left.
Yeah, and he's not afraid to throw.
Yeah. So this was, and it's funny too because of course Moreno, he's filling that gap after getting absolutely landslided by Sergio Pettis in that same kind of fight.
Yeah,
but it's it's rare for a flyweight to have he's got a 70-inch reach compared to Formiga in there at 67, and he just has a really snappy jab and a snappy low kick and a lot of consistency behind it, and kept Formiga pretty well at bay from distance and landed the better shots when he was on the ground. I saw some people were claiming Formiga should have won that fight and all that, but I thought this was really good judging from the officials.
Mm-hmm. And even when the fight was in close quarters, I liked the way that Moreno was striking off the break, and he would throw like a 4-piece and like 3 of them would land and cleanly. I mean, they weren't like the hardest punches in the world, but so what? They were still counting, they were still scoring, more so than the punches that weren't coming from Formiga.
Yeah.
So like I definitely think Moreno won this fight.
Let me see what were the official stats on that. Moreno doubled up on significant strikes against Tussier Formiga, 33-15, 94-61 in total strikes, and outstruck him 2-1 in almost every round except for the third, which I felt like Formiga, might have taken, but it wasn't enough to win the fight.
Yeah. So Moreno hasn't lost in his last 4 fights.
Yep.
So that, puts him kind of right there near the top. I know he wants a title shot. I'm pretty sure they're running back Figueiredo and Benavidez, aren't they?
Yeah.
Is that official?
It's not official yet, but it looks very likely, and I can't imagine them doing anything else unless Benavidez or Figueiredo are just out for too long. So if Benavidez isn't ready to take that fight in 2 or 3 months, then maybe Moreno gets a title shot out of this. Otherwise, he's kind of in a weird spot in that, like, Alexandre Pantoja and Kai Kara France are like 2 of the other fighters at the top of the division, both on some solid wins right now, and they're people that Pantoja has beat Moreno twice, and Moreno beat Kai Kara France just recently. So
it's getting, if it wasn't weird already at flyweight, it's getting weirder.
Yeah, it's a tough division to find a clear, like, oh yeah, this is the obvious next fight for you to take for these 15, 20 fighters in there, many of whom have already fought each other. It's an actual sneaky fight, though, that I'd love to see Moreno in. If assuming that there's no title option for him, I'd actually love to see him fight Ray Borg.
Oh, man, if only Ray Borg could make weight.
Yeah, I know.
But yeah, I mean, considering how well Moreno did on the ground with Formiga, I would like to see if he can stop the wrestling of Borg. That's definitely intriguing.
And because, it's not like Borg had a similar win over Formiga not that long ago when he was on his own title run. So I haven't loved Borg's form lately, but he's looked good in his most recent fight or two. So I'd love to, and I know he's not ranked, but that division's so thin and weird. Like, you might as well just make something happen.
Yeah, and I mean, he's only not ranked because he didn't make weight. I'm sure of that.
That brings us down to a women's strawweight bout: Amanda Ribas, Randa Marcos, and I had all the doubts about Amanda Ribas heading into this fight. I was just like, yeah, okay, you beat Mackenzie Dern, but maybe Mackenzie Dern's just not a very good MMA fighter yet.
Mm-hmm.
And then Ribas just beat 7 shades of hell out of Randa Marcos here.
7 shades of red.
Yes. Like, this
everywhere.
Was absolutely a dominant pummeling. I am happy to see that the judges gave her 2 30-25s, 2 10-8 rounds.
Mm-hmm.
She had, the biggest thing was really, she was just way faster than Randa Marcos. Like, they could scramble a little bit competitively on the ground, but Ribas was getting to every position first. On the feet, she was landing 3 strikes every time Randa Marcos sat down to try and throw 2, and it just was a landslide.
Yeah, I thought it was total domination.
Yep.
Ribas was firing on all cylinders. Her striking was better. Her groundwork was better. Like, everywhere. She was just pretty much just ahead.
Yeah.
Like, this was probably the most complete I've ever seen Ribas. Like, she was really, she looked sharp.
Yep.
She looked sharp out there. And, like, that's great to see.
This is the kind of win that, like, you know, now it's like, you know, find somebody in the top 10 for her. Find somebody else on a big win streak for her to fight. Find a step up against somebody who's really gunning and looks like they're gunning for something big at strawweight, because, like, Ribas can introduce herself right into the title conversation in the next year or 2.
Yeah, I know she's gunning for Paige Van Zandt, but I doubt Paige Van Zandt will ever fight again.
Yeah.
So she should try to lobby for a Angela Hill fight, like, next week or something.
Yeah, that could be. I was also thinking maybe Yan Xiaonan.
Okay.
5-0 now in the UFC. Like, that seems like a solid next step too. I mean, Hill might fight 2 more times before Ribas is ready to fight again, you know?
Very true. That is very true.
But
I love
either way, somebody like Hill who's on a run, or Xiaonan who's on a run, or, you know, somebody else in that kind of conversation who's been having a lot of success lately, that needs to be the next step for Ribas here.
Yeah, because she really looked great tonight. She looked great, and she looked complete.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, you know, I saw Marcos compete with her technically at points, but the just speed and the athleticism and the presence to keep composed in every situation, to keep her striking dominant, to get to dominant grappling positions and hold them down, to never really slip up and make it feel like she was coasting on athleticism and Marcos could just turn the table by doing the right thing at the right time.
Yeah.
It was a great performance.
She commanded the cage.
Yep.
Like, she led the dance the whole time.
Yep. That brings us to a welterweight bout. Elizeu Zaleski, Alexei Kunchenko, and man, I did not think Zaleski won this fight.
No, I can definitely see that. I don't think he did either. I thought this fight was going to be a lot more exciting than it was. I feel like both guys were really hesitant out there, really respectful of the other man's firepower. And, like, I get it. Like, these guys fight like they're middleweights. I understand. But it was such a technical chess match, and just so much reservation between the two. Like, when Kunchenko unleashed, like, he was doing damage. Like, his punches were just so powerful. But I felt like he was so quick to just pull back and be like, all right, let me back off. And, like, Zaleski, the same thing. Like, he would land some really hard kicks and then just back off. It's like they were putting an emphasis on their reflexes, and I don't want to say they weren't being gun shy, but they were just being, like, hypersensitive to what the other man was doing.
Yeah, I gotta say I'm not surprised. I wasn't too surprised by that, just because I think Kunchenko he built this very, like, sort of don't ever overplay your hand championship style while he was in M1 on that huge 20 fight run.
Mm-hmm.
And he's all of his UFC fights, all the way through the latter era of his M1 career, he's always had that kind of very reserved, does not pull the trigger nearly as much as it looks like he could for the technique he possesses.
Right.
And then Zaleski's just not a combination striker. And so, yeah, you really just got this sort of patient range battle of Kunchenko throwing the occasional 1-2 and Zaleski throwing the occasional one big power shot. And I didn't think Zaleski won it. I thought Kunchenko actually did turn it up enough to win this fight.
No, for sure. Like even when it got to the fence, like Zaleski would close the distance and put Konchenko's back to the cage, but Konchenko was like the one, he would find some space and land like 4 just machine gun bump punches.
Yeah.
And he was the one I felt like was landing the better strikes, the more significant strikes.
Zaleski outstruck him in round 1, and then, which I think everybody scored round 1 for him.
Mm-hmm.
But then Konchenko, they basically landed dead even 25-26 for significant strikes that round, and Konchenko landed 42-31 overall strikes. I know numbers aren't the whole story, but
that's what I'm saying, though. It seemed like Konchenko was landing, like his significant strikes were more significant than those of Zaleski.
Or at the very least, over the last 2 rounds, the significant strikes were dead even, and then Konchenko was just the more active fighter, throwing more. He threw 31 total strikes to 23 of Zaleski's in the final round, and Zaleski got a takedown, but he didn't do anything with it. It wasn't a meaningful point of major offense, and at that point, I would just score it for the more active striker, and that felt like Konchenko over the latter half of that fight. So, well, is what it is. But on a pretty well officiated night, I would say that stood out as the one kind of I don't like the way that decision went.
Yeah, maybe it was the control time against the cage that swayed him. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. But I hate to. That's the thing, is I hate to see that kind of thing being scored.
Right.
In
today's MMA, in modern day MMA, yeah.
Anyway, before that, pretty wild bantamweight bout. Enrique Barzola, Hani Yahya, ends in a majority draw. I got no problem with that. Barzola went right at Yahya, or Yahya went right at Barzola, honestly, early, and forced him into a wild grappling battle that Yahya pretty much won for the first 2 rounds, and then he was dead tired, and Barzola beat the brakes off of him in that 3rd round.
Yeah. Yahya got it taken to him there in the 3rd.
Yeah.
That was pretty much it. What surprised me was, Yahya, how effective he was with his striking early. Like, he was landing some really hard punches, and I think it caught Barzola by surprise.
It absolutely did.
I also think Yahya was caught by surprise with just how determined Barzola is when he's grappling.
Yep.
Like, he refuses to just be controlled, and he's so strong and has such a good motor that he's going to work to improve his position.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, he was willing to go for takedowns. It's like, yeah, you might be a better jiu-jitsu guy, but, jiu-jitsu is only one facet of grappling. I can wrestle, I can control, I can scramble, I can work out of bad positions. And, it was kind of fun. It was kind of fun. I'll give it kind of fun.
It was fun just to see. I think the narrative arc of the fight was dramatic, in that Yahya kept getting these control positions and Barzola having to fight hard to get out of them, and then Yahya hitting such a wall in the 3rd round, and then you're just watching as Barzola pours it on. You're like, can he finish him? Can he do enough to dominate this round and get at least a draw out of this? And he did, Yeah.
If he would have finished Yahya, I would have went bonkers. I would have went crazy.
Exactly. So it wasn't necessarily, no one part of the fight was necessarily thrilling, but the whole arc of it was pretty fun to watch.
Yeah, overall, for sure.
That brings us to our fight that ended up winning fight of the night, Marina Moroz defeating Mayra Bueno Silva. And to be fair, this was kind of a slobber knocker.
Yeah, it was. Credit to Moroz for just throwing all the volume.
Yeah.
And surviving that final round. Like, she was really just... I love how she throws jabs to the body.
Yeah.
That's so underutilized in MMA.
It's been really good to see her finally, in the past couple fights, find her range as a boxer. Because she's always been willing to throw a ton of volume out there. It's just that it used to be that she was, she had that kind of Holly Holm syndrome or the Caitlin Chikagian syndrome of just you hear all the ki-eyes, you see all the fists flying, and the landing percent, they're landing at like 20%.
Right.
And now she landed at 56% over this fight, throwing 298 punches, 247 or 298 strikes, 247 of them significant.
Yeah. Like that's impressive.
Yeah, she absolutely landed the majority of what she threw and threw at a super high rate, and she's lucky that she did, because when Silva came back and would land her own shots, they were crushing. Like,
oh yeah, she definitely Silva had the power edge for sure.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. Credit to Morose for surviving that final round, because she ate that knee to the forehead that split her open, and she ate a ton of hard right hands, and she managed to just keep throwing and survive. But I mean, also credit to Silva for being game and not giving up and just kind of being like, oh, well, I lost this one. Because, I mean, the first two, she's getting outstruck and she got taken down. She spent well over 2 minutes on her back in the second round.
Yep.
So, I mean, she went for it and she tried to get the finish. It was just kind of too little too late, and she didn't do enough to 10-8 that final round.
Yeah, when you're getting outstruck for volume, and you're not dropping and hurting your opponent so bad that they're about to go out, it's really hard to score somebody a 10-8.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if Silva had doubled up on Morose in that last round for strikes and landed as much power as she had, I'd be like, yeah, absolutely, scored a draw. But Morose still landed 56 of 101 significant strikes in that round to Silva's 43. Like,
that's so crazy. And a big thing that the volume for Morose was doing was disrupting Silva.
Yeah.
So Silva was coming forward, but before she could get anything off, she was having to deal with the jab. She was having to deal with the cross. Yep. She was having to deal with something to where she couldn't just settle in, find her groove, and start attacking.
Yeah. And you can't even argue that those shots weren't hurting Silva too, because I'm pretty sure Silva ended up with her face was puffy and red, her nose was busted up.
Yeah.
So just a great fight. Glad it won fight of the night. Glad to see, a couple women flyweights on the prelims picking up a good bonus on this. Performances of the night went to Charles Oliveira and Gilbert Burns in the main and co-main event for their stoppage wins.
Right,
don't have any problem with that, considering the lack of stoppages all up and down this card. So,
yeah, it's kind of crazy that Moicano doesn't get a performance bonus for that shellacking 44-second finish.
But, I mean, I guess if even he's disappointed with how the finish went, then what do you expect the UFC to reward you? He didn't like the submission.
I guess. I mean, he was more disappointed in his opponent, but yeah.
Yeah, I know. He still should have probably earned one. I'm just saying, if even he's not happy, then you can't expect your boss to turn around and be happy with you.
I suppose.
Nah, I know.
But yeah, credit to them for getting the money, because they earned it for sure.
That brings us to a flyweight bout. David Dvorak beat Bruno Silva, and this ended up being a lot wilder of a fight than I thought it would. I thought that Dvorak would kind of just outclass Silva standing, and it looked like he was kind of gonna, and then he got clipped hard in the first round by a front kick, hurt him, and Silva had some big bursts of good offense all throughout the fight to keep Dvorak on his heels and make this a pretty close fight all the way through.
Yeah, I legitimately forgot that they were flyweights when they were out there, because they weren't fighting like flyweights at all. Like, they were fighting like they were, 2 or 3 weight classes above that.
Yeah, it was a fun battle.
I didn't really love the fight, to be honest with you. I didn't think it was that great. Like, it was competitive, but outside of that up kick, I mean, there wasn't a lot of wow moments.
No, it wasn't a lot of wow, but it was active. It was, they both. It was
competitive.
It was competitive. Each man had his spots. It was back and forth. And it came down to Dvorak, really having to put out some good volume in the third round, even with Silva getting a takedown. It would be. Let me put it this way: it would be a totally fine, decent fight on any night that didn't have 9 straight decisions.
But it was the second fight of the night.
True.
So it was like, I think it was like Silva slowing down later in the fight. Like he started really, like he came out, he was looking really good, and he was bouncing around. But just as the fight went on, he just, the wind just kept leaving his sails more and more and more. And
you definitely can't be a flyweight that gasses. That's
unheard of. You can't. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean. Like this just didn't have that flyweight feel to me.
Fair. All right, that brings us to the women's bantamweight opener, Bia Malecki and Veronica Macedo, and this was just
regional.
It was incredibly ugly. Macedo came out like a house on fire, throwing absolutely everything, just cranking overhands from her shoulders, looking like she's going to throw something out of the socket, and gassed herself out almost instantly doing it. And then Malecki just outpointed her the rest of the way, but could never do enough damage to actually really turn it into a dominant fight.
Yeah, Malecki just kept like lurching forward, and she just, I don't know. It's like she took that first round off and was like, okay, Macedo, I'm going to Homer Simpson my way through this first round. You come out, you land give me your best shot. And then once I realize you can't do anything, I'm just going to amuse my way through the rest of the fight and absolutely refuse to go to the ground with you unless I'm in, side control and can start racking up some elbows there. But otherwise, you're just going to have to stand back up and deal with me on the feet. And I'm going to kick you in the body and make you even more tired and knee you in the face a couple times and, get the win.
I think a lot more of those were not necessarily decisions she was consciously making as much as they were just an inability to actually functionally take the fight in any of those directions, Like, she may have found herself on top because Macedo would, like, duck in and pull guard over and over again.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Macedo, you have the numbers in front of you. How many takedowns did she botch?
Man, it's this is
like this wasn't even. Oh,
she was 0 of 9.
Yeah, this wasn't like I'm going for a takedown and your takedown defense is stellar, so I couldn't get you down. This was like, I don't want to be on the feet no more because I'm freaking exhausted, so I'm gonna just dive at your ankles and then roll to my back. Yeah,
it's absurd. I'm looking at the stats, and Malecki threw 326 strikes, and Macedo 271. And, like, I can consciously, like, picture that in my mind when I see parts of the fight. But as a total, I can't really combine that with what the fight actually was, just because it was so sloppy all the way through that it doesn't seem, it somehow doesn't really register that they could have also been that active.
No. Yeah, because I don't think Malecki threw a lot in that opening round at all. Maybe it was all those like little elbows on the ground, or
she's credited with having thrown 81 strikes in that opening round.
Malecki?
Yeah, but Macedo threw 112.
I can see Macedo. Yeah, okay, but Malecki, I just don't recall. I feel like she was just throwing like these body kicks here and there, and not moving her head and getting stuck a bunch.
Yeah, I think a lot of it was just how many little tiny pawing punches and things like that she was throwing, like things that would be feints if I thought that she knew how to feint,
That's hilarious. That's like low key just genius. Zane Simon.
But I don't know. This was just a wild, sloppy mess all the way through.
No, I mean, it didn't look like a UFC fight.
No. And as our producer notes, I'm especially this much more mad because on the Vivisection this week, Connor convinced, I was like saying, oh yeah, Bia Malecki's fighting. Connor was like, are you sure it's not Molesky? And I was like, I don't know. I guess maybe Molesky's right. I don't actually know. And then, gets to fight night here and they're like, oh yeah, Bia Malecki. And I'm like, God damn it, Connor. Why did I ever credit you for knowing something for a second that I was sure of myself?
You should have known better, Zane.
I should have known better.
But I mean, to be fair to everybody involved in the mixed martial arts community, pronouncing fighters' names is like one of the hardest low-key hardest things to do.
It is, honestly.
R's or H's sometimes, and there's just, because when you're dealing with a global sport, it's really hard to get it right all the time.
It's times like that I really feel like a companionship with, like, Weili Zhang and Johny and Jacek in the middle of their all-out war. And I'm like, you know what? I struggle with parts of this game, too. I know what it's like. When I'm trying to pronounce Portuguese last names, I'm like, I don't know. There's 2 R's in it. Which of them are H's? I have no idea.
I mean, I was convinced that Brasilia was Portuguese for decision until that Moicano fight. So what do I know?
Oh, all right. On that note, I think we got to start wrapping this up. Running back around, Charles Oliveira beat Kevin Lee. Stellar performance from him. He should be in the title picture. He has a legit claim to make a call for his shot. He's still going to be like a year away from actually being in contention because that division has not moved fast enough for that.
No.
But
it was a great fight and a great statement.
He's name for himself as a top 5 lightweight right now.
I loved it. And my friend bet on Oliveira inside the distance, so he's extra happy.
There you go. On that note, you can find me on Twitter at @TheZaneSimon. You can find Eddie on Twitter at @TheEddieMercado. Tune in next time for UFC Fight Night, Woodley vs. Edwards. And thanks, everyone. We'll see you then.